Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine, and this week we're hearing that the bluefin tuna bite south of the Vineyard, south of Block Island, still very good. We're also hearing that the black sea bass bite in central Long Island Sound has really come to life. Lastly, the striper bite off Rhode Island is just awesome. From border to border, pretty much. It's mostly a boat thing, but a lot of nice fish being caught. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's Web Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
So I'm going to start sort of like I did last week. I'm going to do a tuna rundown, and I'm going to do a porgy rundown because I'm going to be saying the same thing over and over again. So let's start with tuna. That tuna bite, which has been the talk of the town everywhere you go right now, is still red hot. It seems to have sort of compressed a little bit. I didn't hear anything south of Montauk this week. Doesn't mean they're not there. Maybe I just didn't hear about it. But definitely Coxes Ledge over to the Claw. Good action and really good numbers on the days that guys can get out there. It's been mostly a troll bite. Trolling squid bars and sluggo bars and things like that. The fish are mostly eating sand eels. There's some big bluefish out there too, which have been kind of a nuisance. But most guys that go out there, most of the boats I talk to are getting between 4 and 10 fish in a trip. I mean, that's good fishing. I talked to Rob Taylor. He said no change. He said if the days you can get out there, you go south of the windmills and you can get into some really nice fish. And the action is really good. Talked to some friends of mine in the vineyard. Said the same thing. They said the Claw has not slowed down at all. A lot of good fish being caught there. But they also mentioned that whales have started to pull up off of Chatham out toward Crab Ledge and areas around there. There's been some giants there. Make sure you follow the rules on those. But there's also been some smaller fish up to 60 inches or so. And there's just tons of bait there. There's big mackerel, there's sea herring, there's sand eels, and just a lot of life and a lot of action. The tuna bite's really coming alive. If offshore is your thing, you got to get out there. And then just regarding the whole scup porgy thing, it's good. It's good pretty much from Martha's Vineyard all the way to New York and beyond. These fish are in shallower water. You can get them from 5 feet of water down to 50 feet of water, possibly deeper. Guys are getting them on jigs. They're getting them from shore, boat, sailboat, stand-up paddleboard, inner tube, whatever vessel you choose, you can catch porgies. And bait and jigs have been working great, and just a lot of solid fish. A lot of good reports from like party boats like the Black Hawk, and I've seen a lot of guys myself in Rhode Island and Mass getting them from shore. It's just it seems to be good every year at this time, but it's really good right now, and a great fishery to get your kids in on. Moving over into the states now, I'm going to talk about Massachusetts. The striper bite on the North Shore has been good for the boat guys this week, but not as good for the surf guys. I talked to James Jukes. He said you really had to move around and find a place to get out of the swell. He said the swell's been gentle, which has been good for the boats, but when it comes up on shore, it's been tough for the surf guys. So he's had to do a lot of hopping and skipping and jumping, trying to find places to get out of the swell. And he said that once they get out of the swell, they would find some decent fish. He sent me a picture here of his buddy Aaron with a nice fish in the low to mid 30-pound class. Anyway, hard to tell for sure. But the boat guys fishing Joppa Flats and offshore, finding the bunker schools and mackerel schools are getting some nice fish. They're getting 30-pound plus class fish, and they've been doing really well. He's hoping that the new moon coming will fire things back up, and I have to believe it will, as long as Elsa doesn't screw things up too much. I talked to Greg Taylor. He's fishing the surf on the North Shore as well. He said he had one night last week where he found a lot of nice fish, a lot of fish almost kissing that 30-pound range on darters, and said these dark nights have been pretty good for him. The story in Boston has been mostly the same. Still some really solid fish in the islands there. It's mostly a boat thing. Guys trolling tube and worm, guys drifting eels at night. Those have been the chief methods for getting some of these better fish. Heading down toward the canal, There's been fish at Barnstable Harbor. The reports I've been hearing haven't been like gangbusters, but there's been fish there. The better bass fishing on the Cape is occurring from Billingsgate up to Race Point, pretty much the same as last week. There's some fish, some good numbers of fish there. There's shorts and overs in abundance that kind of threading the needle. Getting those 28 to 35 inch fish has been a little tougher, but there's been decent numbers of those 40 to 43 inch fish or in that range on the right days. Some days it's been a lot tougher than others, but I mean, that's fishing. I have heard some good reports from the outer beaches, mostly north of Nauset Inlet, but those reports really petered out the last few days. And it did seem like some of those fish slipped around the end of the Cape into the bay. But before that, there were some good numbers being taken off the beaches there. So, if you're heading out there for a week, it might be a good idea to head out there in the evening with a needlefish and a redfin and a sluggo and see what you can pull. The Monomoy rips have good numbers of fish, mostly schoolies and low slots, a few bigger fish in the mix there. The vineyard seems to slow down again. There were some better fish in the Sound the last couple weeks. They seem to have moved on. But there are those omnipresent schoolie stripers in the ponds and along the beaches there. But they're very rarely getting keeper fish. These fish are topping out at like 24, 25 inches. But if you need to bend the rod, there's plenty of those around if you're on the vineyard. Buzzards Bay slowed way down, and the canal has been dead. There are fish in the canal, for the guys putting in the most time. And the guys jigging bottom, drifting eels, and it's been mostly at either end of the canal. But it's been an off year for the canal, and we'll see if that continues. We do have a breaking tide starting up right around now, and if I was forced to guess, I would say it's going to be a lackluster set of tides. Hopefully I'm wrong. That's the striper story in Massachusetts. Sea bass seem to have mostly moved deep. Not hearing a lot from Buzzards Bay this week. Not hearing a lot from really anywhere. The zone that's still producing is that little triangle I talked about last week, kind of Nomans, the Vineyard, and Cuddy Hump. Just that little triangle in there seems to be the best spot. Hit those deeper holes, and you should be able to find some keeper sea bass to take home for the table. I didn't hear much from Nantucket Shoals this week, but I'm blaming that on the weather. We had a lot of big swells this week and a lot of shifting winds and rain and all kinds of things that would have made it tougher for even the bigger boats to get out and fish the shoal. So I'm confident that there's plenty of big fluke there. We just didn't hear many reports from there this week, and honestly, I didn't hear many fluke reports from Massachusetts at all this week. And as far as bluefish goes, there are bluefish on the south side of the vineyard in good numbers. There's, as I mentioned in the intro, there's some big ones out with those bluefins. There's small bluefish running the outer beaches of the Cape, especially Nauset and Coast Guard seem to have a lot of these 2 to 6 pound bluefish. And then in Buzzards Bay, if you can find a school of bunker, you get a good chance to find some big bluefish on those as well. And that's pretty much the story of Massachusetts this week. Moving into Rhode Island now, the bass bite has moved mostly out of the bay, except for that one stubborn little knot of fish up in Providence. Those fish are still there. They're still catchable. There's a lot of bunker up there, and that's why they're staying there. I haven't checked the buoy data, but the water's got to be close to 80 degrees up there. And, those stripers are just sitting up there with their umbrella drinks and doing their thing. But if you want to catch bigger fish, because those fish up at Providence, they're topping out at like 38 inches. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and there's a decent number of slot fish in there. But if you're looking for some big ones, you got to get out front. It's going to be a swelly week this week. We've got a lot of swell now, and then we've got Elsa to deal with. She's about to come across Florida and throw some big stuff our way. So it's going to be a tough week to get out there, but there are fish off of Beavertail. There's lots of fish off of Newport. It's mostly, say a half mile off the beach. And these fish are taking top waters. The guys are getting them on eels, tube and worm, They're getting them on live bunker and chunk bunker at night too. But there's a lot of fish, a lot of good sized fish. Got fish from like 18 to 40 pounds is mostly what I've been hearing about. Block Island is Block Island. You go out to the ledge, you got a good shot at getting a big one. Excuse me. It's, as it always is, it's mostly an eel thing, but also guys throwing rubber, bouncing rubber on the bottom, big rubber eels, things like that. They're doing well there as well. And then over at the Watch Hill Reefs, I heard about some nice fish there as well. Fish up to, fish up into the mid 30-pound class. Guys getting them on topwater plugs in the daytime and drifting through with eels at night. Actually, I did hear about one big bass from not Block Island, Rhode Island this week, and that was caught somewhere off in Newport by my buddy Robbie, one of his clients on Newport Sport Fishing Charters. Got a 51-pounder during the day on a live eel. So there's some good fish around in Rhode Island. If you're looking for bluefish, I haven't heard a lot. Most of the bluefish action that I've heard of has either just been kind of sporadic flare-ups on pods of bait out front. The one place that there seems to be bluefish more reliably is the north end of Jamestown. There's been some, but they're not big. You know, you're going to top out at 7 pounds if you're lucky. It's mostly 3 to 6 pound fish. But they are there. They're mixed in with some slot bass. And that's been really the only place in Rhode Island where I know you can go and probably find a bluefish. The other place that I would look is the mouth of the breachways. They've been there pretty reliably over this entire season. They're mostly on the small side now, but they are there. Pretty much any place that you can count on there being some bait, there should be some bluefish. The fluke action has been really up and down. It's definitely continues to get better for the guys who put in the most time. But we're definitely hearing, good and bad reports. And off the beaches, the South County beaches, it's been like a half and half mix. Some guys are coming back with their hands in the air, and some guys are coming back with heavy coolers. The one thing that's been mixing in a lot off those beaches is sea bass. Guys are starting to see a lot more keeper-sized sea bass in that area now. So you're getting a good mixed bag there, and I think it's just a matter of not being afraid to move around. If that hump that you always get them on is not producing, you just got to keep looking. Because they are out there. It's just inconsistent. The most consistent fishing is still east grounds off a block and, over at the windmills if you don't mind battling the dogs. But it has been, there have been bigger fish there. And when you get on the right piece, you can do really well. I've seen, I got this picture from the 7Bs here. That's a good day of fluking right there. Those are solid fish. But that's the result of hard work. That's not just a guarantee go out there anywhere and start bouncing bucktails. And let's see, am I missing anything? No, I think that's it. The guys from Watch Hill Outfitters, they had some other things to do this week, so we didn't get a video from them. But a lot of the information that I just gave you came from them. Always appreciate their input. And that's what I got for you this week in Rhode Island. And now we roll over into Connecticut. And the bass fishing in Connecticut is starting to spread out too. We're finally starting to hear about some better fish in the race and the sluiceway. So this is that time of year, and as we come into this new moon, we should see some even bigger fish coming out of there. But the quality is going up, the numbers are going up, and it's definitely time to start putting a little more time into that area. Up in the Connecticut River, water temps continue to skyrocket, even despite this, 4th of July wet weekend. And the fish are moving out. So the reefs and points and ledges outside of the river are starting to populate with some nice fish. And guys are getting them during the day on big spooks like the dock, and also fishing live eels during the day, fishing live bunker during the day. But there are still some good fish in the mouth of the river, despite that tepid water. So that area is still holding a lot of nice fish. And, it's one of those places, I think it just has so much bait that it holds fish well into the summer and a lot of years right through the entire summer. Heading west from there, I know that the 6 Mile Reef area has been really good for bass. Haven't heard of as many like giant bass in that area, but there's a lot of slot fish there, which is something I'm not saying for many other places. And there's good numbers of just under slot fish, and then there are, you know, some solid fish like up to 30 pounds. No Connecticut giants though, at least that I've heard of. The other place that's been really good is that 50 line that I've talked about before off of Milford. Any of you that have been reading this magazine for a long time may remember Bobby J from Bobby J's Bait and Tackle, who's no longer with us. He was a great guy, and I definitely dearly miss him. I loved calling him every week. He was a great guy to talk to. But he always told me that 50 line off Milford at this time of the year, fishing chunks at night or live eels at night, can produce monster fish. And last week, if you remember, there were 2 fish in the mid 50-pound range taken that way. I didn't get any solid numbers this week as far as like what the biggest fish was, but I know that there were fish well into the 40-pound class caught there this week. And that's going to extend over into Norwalk too, where there's been a shallow water bite, but we'll hear more about that from Max at the end of the video. Bluefish seem to have sort of exited the Connecticut River area. That was like my top place to go last week, and now they've kind of spread out. So if you're really looking for bluefish, I would just bounce from river mouth to estuary mouth, and that's a good way to find small ones, good for the smoker. If you're looking for a big one, I would either head way west and fish off of Norwalk out in the middle there, out of the middle ground area. During the day, those fish sometimes just fin up on top, and you can get them on a variety of lures, but topwater plugs seem to always be the top takers. Or I'd head over to the gut. The gut always seems to have a couple schools of bluefish that you can count on to be there. But that's pretty much what I know bluefish-wise this week. Porgies, we already talked about the intro, very good across the state. Sea bass is definitely trending to the east and trending deeper. But like the Black Hawk, for instance, they found some really nice fish this week, some solid 3.5 to 4.5 pound sea bass, and I heard that from other people as well. So that's typical. That's what I've seen that year in and year out writing the Connecticut report. These fish move from 6 Mile, and then they start to kind of fall off into those deeper waters. Out in front of Black Point, and out and out and out from there, all the way out into New York waters. So if you're looking for sea bass, that's where I would look if I was fishing in Connecticut this week. And then fluke wise, it's getting better. It's still not a place where you're likely to find a lot of really big fluke, but I know the sand shoal picked up this week. I know that over toward Rhode Island, kind of getting into the Wickapesset area, there's been some fluke there. And then behind Fishers has been consistently inconsistent, but there are some nice fish there if you don't mind weeding through all the shorts. But if you're leaving from Rhode Island if you're leaving from Connecticut and you're looking for a big one, I'd either go to Montauk or I'd go to Block. Those are your 2 best options to get a big fluke. Let's see, I think I covered most of the bases, or if not all the bases, in Connecticut this week. So let's throw it over to Max from Fisherman's World and hear what's happening in the western end of the Sound.
Hey everyone, Max here from Fisherman's World again with another local fishing report. This past week, the weather's made it hard for a lot of people to get out, but when they did, they were finding nice fluke limits, striped bass, blues, porgies, and sea bass. The fluke fishing this past week has been great. We've seen fish up to 8 pounds, and here's a pic of Rick Mola with an 8-pounder on a spoon. Fishing outside can 26, 24, and drifting the obstruction buoy in 28C is your best bet right now. I would say depths from like 30 to 60 feet is great. Sea bass have been on our deeper wrecks and rock piles, and if you can get them on bucktails, diamond jigs, I'm sure you can find your limit. Try to stay in 60 foot or more for these fish. Porgies have really invaded now. Guys are catching them from the beaches, places like Sherwood Island, Calf Pasture Beach on the pier, and in all the beaches and harbors up the coast up to Stratford in our area. The bass fishing still remains good. There's been bass of 50 pounds this past week taken on the troll, and guys chunking are finding good quality fish. There's been fish inside the islands now, over 30 pounds taken, and we've been fishing shallow rock piles with bunker and big spoots and finding some nice fish past the 25-pound mark. Thank you and good luck.
And that's our report this week. I hope that they help you out. This looks like it's going to be a tough week. We've got big swells now. We've got the remnants of a hurricane coming into the area, and I think it's going to be tough. I'm hoping that, because this storm's supposed to move through on Friday, I'm hoping that things calm down quickly. But if you're heading out this week, definitely, read your marine forecast, maybe read another one, and, make your choices wisely, because no fish is worth the ultimate price. We'll see you guys next week.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.